Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to do some painting on this black watercolor paper. This is the Shenzhen black handmade cold press watercolor paper. The texture on handmade watercolor paper is, at least any of the handmade watercolor paper I've ever used, like the Nunjabi or the Shenzhen, it's way more textured than its machine made or mold made counterparts. And I thought this would be really fun to use because it's a more softer size paper and it doesn't work as well with traditional watercolors. I thought it'd be fun to use it with these Chinese watercolors that I'm getting ready to review. Now the review will probably already be on YouTube when this tutorial comes out because I like to do a bunch of different paintings with some watercolors before I do an actual review. So I'm going to start off. China watercolors are, or Chinese style watercolors are more opaque. So I just think they are going to work really well on this paper. Now I don't know if this color is going to be opaque enough to stand out. I think I'm also going to grab some of this kind of corally color. And I let my paints dry in the palette. I had no issues re-wetting them. I think some ochre would work really well with that too. But I'm just going to start by, I want to do like this, like kind of like a cherry blossom. Just a simple branch, and I just kind of want a leave a gap there for a flower. You can see how it's skipping on the rough texture of the paper. You see that? I'm gonna have to switch to a bigger brush, but I wanted the liner to start off with just to get those delicate strokes. So it is showing up. I'm going to go in with a round, and I'm going to pick up some of this ochre color. It's kind of like a yellow ochre, but I would say it's more beigey and more, maybe it has some white added in it because it's definitely more dull looking. Almost has a little bit of a green undertone, but it's really showing up well on this paper. Do a little bit of a bud there, maybe just a little start of a bud here. And boy, it doesn't take much paint, I've noticed with this these are the Paul Rubens gouache tubes. And there's they also have the gouache like large Gansai style pans. Those are all metallic. These are all traditional colors except for there is one gold. So if I add that burnt umber color, this one is more transparent and it's not really, it's either, I think it is both. I think it's both more transparent, and I also think that it is the darkness of it, since it's darker in value, it's not having enough contrast with the background. I like using these a lot more from dry than from wet like fresh from the tube. So I just want to mention that in case you have these or you're kind of curious as to what you should do with the paints, if you should put them in a palette or what. All right. So the petals of my flowers are white. I got some white here. And it's got a little bit of a tinting of pink because I was doing some pink cherry blossoms previously, and I'll show you that painting. This was done on masa paper, and kind of in like a cherry blossom type of theme. That tutorial is, if it's not on my YouTube channel, it will be shortly, but I think it is. So we've got these 5-petaled flowers, and since this is its own like, this is really thick paper too. I'm gonna try. Oh, you know what? I think I need to do this. I think I'll do it so that, yeah, so that the outside of my bristles, this is not a Chinese brush, this is a just a Taklon brush. It's actually the prototype for my brushes that I have coming out. I don't think I'm spacing these out very well. And I'm not versed in the Chinese or sumi-e Japanese style painting or calligraphy, so this is all just me fooling around. I've never really studied it. I'm just playing here. This kind of one's more on its side. Now I do want to get a little bit of pink in there because I do like a little bit of pink. Now the China paints are good on these papers that aren't so sized because they don't flow, they're thicker, they sit on top of the paper. So if you don't have these, if you've got like the Kiritake Gansai Tambi paints, you can use those, or any other Gansai style paint. They're going to be fine. They're going to be so similar, like dried down in the pan. So go ahead and use those. You definitely don't need these if you already have those. I think these might reactivate a little bit better, but I've never really had an issue with the Gansai Tambis reactivating, so I would say use whatever you have convenient, you know, and whatever is convenient for you to get. I'm going to add a little bit of that on this little bud as well, a little bit of that white, and maybe a little bit more pink up here on this one. And it almost looks like we might have a little start of something up there. Okay. This is just an experiment too. I'm just seeing how this is going to go on the on this paper. I might not even publish it. Sometimes you do that. Sometimes I'll just record because I'm like, well, oh, that's probably way too pink. Sometimes I'll just record for fun, and then other time, and I'll be like, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm overdoing it with the pink. But I don't want to lift any off. I'm going to go ahead and just pick up more of the white. I'm surprised at how well the white reactivates, to be honest. Because like even if you have like white gouache, a lot of artists won't like, you know, they'll squeeze it out fresh every time, even if they have a dry gouache palette they work from. I'm going to do some spattering. I overworked it. I should have stopped a few steps ago, and I think that's yeah, that's something that somebody who's practiced at this, that's a mistake they wouldn't have made. But that's all right. So I need some really dull kind of leaves. So I'm going to start off with this ochre color, and I'm going to mix it in with a phthalo green color. Now the Paul Rubens paints do not have any English names on them, so I'm just going by what would be kind of like a customary name that we would call these colors. Getting a lot of broken lines because of the texture of this paper. But I also think it's kind of pretty. This lends itself to a more loose approach, which is really what I wanted to do here. It's really fun. This would be, I think, fine on like a greeting card. I think it'd be really pretty on a greeting card, to be honest. Or you could even do this in like acrylics on something kind of decorative. It definitely has kind of a decorative feel to it. I feel like I want to add a little bit of green. I feel like these paints are really nice if you like to do that kind of stroke work, because it's very, you know, they grab to the bristles really well. They're very smooth. It might be a nice bridge if you've been doing rose modeling or toll painting and you want to kind of get into gouache or watercolor, but you're not sure what you want to do. I think this would be a kind of a nice, yeah, these are just becoming blobs. I overworked it. That's a bummer. But you know what I think I'll do? I think I'll let this dry, and then go in maybe with some gold and a liner and see if I can bring things back. I also wouldn't mind having a little bit of blue in there. So while things are still wet, maybe I'll just do a little bit of like a border. Probably should have done that before I did any spattering. You can really see the texture of the paper when I do that. I like how some of these opaque colors really show up on the black. These are definitely not a traditional watercolor. Traditional watercolors pride themselves on being very transparent, very flowy, and move in water a lot. These are not going to do that. So if you're curious about these paints and you're watching this tutorial because you're wondering if, as a watercolor artist, you might enjoy these, these are not a traditional watercolor. So if you want a paint that's super transparent, that's super flowy, you're not going to be happy with these. So I did want to mention that because sometimes it gets exciting to see something new and you're like, oh, I got to have that. But if it's not the type of stuff that you like, you know, it's good to know. It's good to know that. Oh, I like spattering on the wet surface though. That's giving me a really fun, look. And then things are getting sharper around the flowers. I like that. Okay, I'm going to dry this. Maybe before though. But first, let me flick on some of this pink into that spattery area too. That can give the impression of maybe like more blossoms out of frame. I'm just being intuitive here, guys. I don't really know what I'm doing as far as like a traditional technique. I'm just playing. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry. Be right back. This is dry now, and something I want to mention is that I'm looking at my monitor right now and it looks like these paints are more opaque than they are. They look a little more translucent in real life, so I just wanted to make a note of that. Now the other thing that I thought after I dried it was that I want to try the black paint that's in this set and see what it's like to bring kind of the black back, and I'm kind of tempted to use this this dagger brush. So I'm going to see how this works. I can always switch to a liner or a round, but I think I might be able to get some more expressive strokes with this. Let's see. So my petals got a little bit, oh, that's maybe too, well, maybe not. My petals got a little too blobby. So I'm thinking that, I don't know if this is the best brush for this job, but let's just see it through. Let's see how it goes. And then this one wasn't too bad, I gotta say. This one I wasn't as bothered by that one. Okay, yeah, I think that's fine. So, and I have noticed that these dry really matte, so I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that giving a shiny spot, which is something that is a little different, I will say, between these paints and the Gansai Tambi paints. The Gansai Tambi seem to, if you give a thick application, you seem to get a gloss to them, and I'm not seeing that here. So I'm going to take some of this like orangey yellow. I'll scoot this over a little bit so you can see my whole palette. This kind of like orangey yellow here, and I am going to do the stamens. And then I'll just take some like maybe like that Bordeaux color and bring some of those lines in. You can see different shades. I think actually what you're seeing is kind of the middle of the excuse me, you're seeing the pink in the middle of the flower, and then you're seeing the lighter colored stamens coming up. But I think you can get the same effect just by putting in the stamens with the Bordeaux color, because then you'll have like the space between those lines. So I think it's going to give us a very similar effect. Especially if I start the strokes at the bottom, so they're more concentrated at the bottom, and then they kind of fade out. I used this really cheap $2 palette to put these paints in because I wasn't sure if I was going to like them, and I didn't want to dedicate a bunch of half pans if that was the case. But I have to say I really do enjoy these. But I also have to say that I don't think I'd want these in half pans. I like to be able to get a big brush in these, and especially if you're going to be working on like rice paper, or you're going to work really loosely and use big brushes, you want those larger pans. So that would be, I would still stay with something that has big wells, or maybe even if you have some of the leftover large pans from like Gansai paints, that would be a really good, that would be a great a great thing to upcycle, to reuse for that. I always save my palettes, my pans. If I use up a watercolor set, I always save the pans. If it's in like a even if it's in like a weird palette, I still save the palette because you never know. You might be like just wanting to test out a set, or maybe your friend buys some new paints and wants to share, or you want to share with a friend. That's a really great way to try different different products as an artist. If you've got a friend who paints, if you like, well, I'm buying this set of, you know, Magello, you want some, and I'm buying this set of, you know, another tube paint, and you guys share, that's a really great way to be able to try a bunch of things without having to spend a ton of money, because watercolor lasts so long. I'm just highlighting the edges of these. I probably could have done that. I could have done that before, but I would have had to let it dry, and I'm kind of impatient. Oh, I like that though. I want to kind of just get a little bit in there too. I don't think it's going to dry so boldly. I think it's going to dry a little bit more translucently, and it won't take long to dry, so we'll be able to see that. And then I think I would like to highlight those leaves a bit. I think I'll take some of the golden color and some of that yellow, that bright yellow, maybe a little bit of white, and some of the green. Because they're not bright, they're very dull looking leaves, so I just want to get that. But look at how, when you have that over a dark area, even like a dull, kind of more opaque color will look really fabulous. So I guess I would not recommend these paints for beginners. I think that because there's so much opacity in there, it could be a problem for someone learning. It could be really easy to make mud, but if you're pretty good with color theory and you just like to try new things, or you don't plan on doing a ton of mixing, yeah, I think I think you'd enjoy them. And they're not that expensive compared to, like, you know, buying artist grade tube paints. These are about, well, you know, they might be on sale, but I think the regular price is like $39 or $40 for the set of 24 12 ml tubes. Yeah, I like that. I think I'm gonna call that done, actually. I think it looks really cute, and I'm not really, well, I have to also say, this looks more subtle in person. Like this background looks a lot more subtle. On camera, it looks like it's going from black to like really opaque. So that is something that that does look better in person. I think maybe I will add a little bit of spatter, maybe more of the pink spatter, just to give the impression of like buds in the distance, and to kind of make it not look so harsh. It doesn't really look harsh in real life. It looks harsh on camera. And maybe some green to show, like, you know, green in the distance. And if I don't want to be really bold, I'll use the phthalo more on its own, because then it will be more transparent and won't show up on the black. I do want to pick up some of that and clean my palette while I'm at it. To be honest, I like to do that. A little bit of that brightness into some of those. I don't know if I like it that bright, but there we have it. I hope you enjoyed this this little demo. I hope it kind of inspired you to get your paints out today and do a little quick and easy painting. You could do this on white paper with any traditional watercolors too. You know, just use what you have and get that practice in, because that's what's going to make the difference in your art ability, in your art journey, is actually just practicing and getting that brush wet. Because you know, you can watch all the videos in the world, but until you put it to practice, it's really not going to help you that much. But thank you for watching. I'll have links for everything I use down below if I can find them. And until next time, happy crafting.